Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Unemployment Thursday. How's everyone doing? Good morning, John. Good morning, Jacob. Good morning, Patrick. Good morning, Jake the Snake. Good morning, Sterling. That's fine, Sterling. Again, everything you do for the channel is wonderfully appreciated. It's not an issue. Good morning, Richard. Good morning, Options 22. Good morning, Daniel. NVO triggered daily, weekly double bottom. Remind me if you want to look at that. All right. So, if bad news is good news again. Bad news is good news. Everybody's looking for the Fed to start cutting after the May meeting. Unemployment numbers jumping today, 241 initial jobless claims. That's the highest in a while. Prior was 223. Consensus was 224. Yeah, we can take a look at Meta double bottom. Continuous jobless claims, 1916, consensus 1860, so that's spiking up too. What else do we have? We have the S&P Global Manufacturing PMI final. Going to be interesting to see if this falls into contraction. Remember, anything below 50 is contraction. ISM Manufacturing, these are the larger companies. These are the S&P Global is small to medium. ISM is larger. That was in contraction prior. Consensus for it to still be in contraction. Unemployment numbers going to be interesting. New orders and manufacturing prices are going to be interesting to see if this holds in their consensus for it to pop again. Okay, so then we have 4 and 8 year bill auctions, but that's really it. That is really it. So after 10 a.m. Eastern, not much going on. Good morning. Good morning, Anissa. There it is. I like this good morning better, Anissa. Hagoo. That's what I feel this morning. How could it be traded in the S&P? Sure, we can talk about that. And remember, we have non-farm payroll Friday tomorrow. So that's going to be interesting also. Not out of the woods yet in terms of news releases today. It's by the Mag 7. Except Tesla's sort of flat. We had that report out from the Wall Street Journal last night that was denied by Tesla and Elon that they were looking for a new CEO. Apple slightly down today, but Amazon, Meta, strong earnings yesterday. Google, we had Microsoft, very strong earnings yesterday. Microsoft up big, and we can take a look at that one. That was strange because I was look at the 5-minute chart for the double on the trigger. The settlement triggered the double, but the 5-minute chart didn't. It would have had to be traded on a breakout prior to earnings. So, good morning, PMG. And I thank you, everyone, for being here. Good morning, and Group Screener. All right. Good morning, Group Screener. Technology and comm services, definitely a risk on day. I mean, it's buy everything technology and comm services, expecting the Fed to just start a rapid cutting cycle based off these unemployment numbers and the inflation numbers. That's what really triggered. Remember I said yesterday to watch the 10:30 numbers, or I mean the 10 a.m. numbers. The 10 a.m. with PCE, especially if it came in lighter than expected. Okay, this came in. The PCE came in very dovish, and the market just took that and ran with it. We had the sell-off from GDP, and those were the higher PCE numbers. But remember, that's backwards looking for a whole quarter. This is only backwards looking for March. All right, and the market just took that and ran with it. Now, by the way, before we get to there, fear and greed still in fear mode. Schiller PE. I'm wondering, because this is acting very strange now. It's still getting an extreme fear from all this stuff, but it's very interesting. Schiller PE still 34.47. Not a cheap market, but that doesn't matter. Good morning, Heinrich. After the close today, we have Lilly report. We had MasterCard report, which was a beat. McDonald's reported sales were in the toilet for McDonald's. Amazon and Apple after the close today. And then tomorrow morning we have ExxonMobil as the biggie. All righty. So Oh, there's the gold chart. Gold, or finally, I was watching. I'll show you what I was looking for in there. So yesterday, you were asking. We had the breakdown level. We had the numbers come out. The numbers come out right here, and it was off to the races. I was watching for momentum bars. This key break. This key break. Here, let me just raise this other level. This, we had momentum bars off of bottom with a V-shaped reversal, pausing, coming up, holding above this level, retesting it a couple times, not forming a double bottom because it's not a revert. This wasn't reversing a move, but confirming support. This was the key level. This was, unless you bought momentum off the bottom, if you bought momentum bars off the bottom and then used this area to take profits or definitely raise a stop, that was one thing. If you missed that, here's the next key thing. It's what I've talked about before. This was the resistance that was set up. We had the numbers come out, the GDP numbers. Here was the market open. We tanked in the market open. You got the PCE numbers from March coming out, which were dovish, which showed, all right, if those hold true, inflation is not going to be an issue. And then you wonder today, because with the unemployment numbers coming out, all right, we get rising unemployment. If inflation is not an issue, you get rising unemployment. The Fed has to cut, and they're pricing in a rapid cutting cycle. Did I even recover that? I think I forgot. With that rapid cutting cycle, this is now a pause in May, but cut. 4 straight cuts through October now. Not even waiting for December. So that was the key thing. Remember, this is true on any time frame. When I talk about breakouts and I watch for pullbacks, unless you get a massive momentum breakout, I love to where it retests the prior resistance and confirms its support, and then getting on the trade. That's the more conservative entry. Okay? And I said, watch for those numbers. Again, this market is so not only news driven, but number driven right now. So the second target was hit on the double for the S&P. We're climbing to the third target. The key area I'm still watching on a continued rally is for this gap fill. We still have a gap fill back to 2nd of April. And that's 57.1225. And remember, yesterday we dipped into the rotation zone, dipped a little beyond it, and then snapped back. That's why you got to keep an eye on those rotation zones. Minor, let's take a look here. The minor level right here is about 55.91 to 5600 on any pullback. That's what I'm watching. Now, the more significant level, I'm still looking at this 54.90 to 5500. Okay? So that's what I'm looking at right now. I'd be watching also on any pullback, the top of the rotation zone this morning, if we have any weakness into the open, right around 56, 56.18, 56.20. Other than that, if we power up and break through, my next key target, again, 57.12. Hold on. I lost my chat. 1 second. Just the chat got stuck behind a window. There we go. Sorry, just making some changes there. Hey, Charles, how you doing? Good morning, David. So that's the way I looked at it. Sterling, I think, put in the comments how he was looking at it. The NASDAQ finally completed the double pattern. If we continue higher on a closing basis, I'm watching this 20,188. On an intraday basis, I'm watching the 200, right around 20, just above 20,300. All right, the double is completed. On a pullback level, the major support is coming in about 19,660. The minor level I'm looking into the open on any weakness is 19,840 to 850. So that's it. That's all I have to talk about there. The Dow is really trading against very major resistance and the 50 EMA. If it pops through there, the next key target is 41,600. Key support right now on a longer term basis is 40,450. Russell, not managing to pop much. Still stalling at this minor harmonic. If we do break through and the Russell can get a pop, it's really 2018. 2018 is the next key target I'm watching for. And the breakdown level, we violated a little yesterday and snapped back, but it's still about 1938. The VIX, I'm still watching for this to head down. And then I will be watching for potential another building a VIX position type of thing. Okay, still being very patient with this. We have a gap. We have the gap left behind. We have the 87.5 rule, and I do trust in technical analysis. So if you wanted to start to build, so again, I can't give you trading advice. If you want to start building early, this is fine. You know, the market, you can get anything that happens, but you know, this is especially starting next week, the beginning of next week, I'll start looking at VIX and other volatility to see where that sits to possibly get long some volatility. The DAXI above tested yesterday with the tested actually and held key support. So just taking a look at that, where are we trading right now? Why isn't my DAX chart right? What happened to my DAX? That's weird. I'll have to figure that out. My DAX chart's not correct. All right, I know I don't, it's on delayed data, but I don't know why that's off. I'll have to take a look at that later. Notes, breaking above, holding support. So the trend is now on any pullback, watching the daily rotation zone for pullbacks. And this key area I was talking about watching for yesterday for the close, this 112 area. So the yields are dropping again, or trying to drop. Little spike down. We do have a very strange pattern here. It's a very lopsided double. That's the only thing. I mean, you can't use this as the peak. You cannot use that as the peak. Okay? This is the technical top of the double. That's the only thing that would change my short-term view of the yields dropping in the short term. Dollar index. The double, after only hitting the first target, was invalidated yesterday. Remember, my key areas is 99.80. We've pushed up towards it today and backed off from it. I'm still watching from the longer-term dollar bottoming pattern. This is going to be a potentially longer trade. Now, if you're trying to trade a very sloppy inverse head and shoulders, I wouldn't. I'd still wait for the 99.80 area. Crude coming down. Crude has rotated down. Now, is this a double bottom? On a weekly basis, it is. So that's the only thing that would shift me bullish on crude, besides a short-term pattern down here at very key support. Other than that, why is this a weekly pattern? Because this is the weekly move that started it. All right, you have this daily hitch in it. It can be traded on the daily basis, but I'd be focusing on the first and second targets only because it falls within this move. So if you want to trade it on the daily, that's it. Other than that, I'm going to be watching over the next couple days if this key area holds for at least a setup bounce trade, but not a longer-term long trade yet. Gold. We had the building of the base. I was going to watch for today. Based off this, we had a potential %B buy setup if it took out yesterday's high. It's gone the other way now. I was watching for that for a bounce play only because, remember, I am still watching for the pullback in gold. We're still overextended from the weekly and the monthly rotation zones. If this were going to reconnect with the monthly, this could get back to even slightly below 3,000. So was watching. This was the secondary reaction at this point. Now we've broken down. I'm watching today where we close in relation to the rotation zone. But we could be in sell the rally mode for the short term in gold, not for the long term. For the short term. And we are not seeing it yet in the 10-year, Richard. We are not seeing it yet in the 10-year. Everything's acting very dovishly, and Bissett is jawboning. They're trying to get the Fed. They were talking this morning about the 10-year above the 2-year means the Fed should cut or something like that. We shall see. We shall see. Now, you're not going to see massive inflation if we have a pretty steep recession. However, if prices hold in there and we don't get a lot of price cutting, I still consider that stagflationary because normally when you get into a pretty steep recession, you get a lot of price discounts. All right? So, we're going to keep an eye on that too. Copper. Big drop yesterday. So now coming back to a very key support level. I'm not going to watch for secondary reaction to see if this sets up some kind of more significant topping pattern. But nothing yet. Yen is breaking out. It's another reason why I'm watching the dollar. Remember, I was watching the bottoming pattern for the yen. Today, we're now breaking above it, and we're breaking above a key resistance. So I'm now going to watch how this closes today, whether it can hold this 144.30 level. And then if on any pullback, going to be watching this breakout base, 144.30, 143.50 area. Euro, watching the head and shoulders, which is now getting properly formed with a horizontal neckline. So going to be keeping an eye on that too for a topping pattern in the euro. Spiders, right now, 560.82 is the final target on the double, which looks like we might hit that today with the gap up. And then the next key target, you still have a gap fill back to 564.52. On a closing basis, pay attention to 563.94. Not necessarily today, but let's see. Remember also, I didn't talk about it, but we are very overbought on the financial futures and the spiders and the Qs. And we're at cycle tops. So I am still watching for topping patterns. Remember, we started to sell off yesterday, and then the PCE numbers reversed it. Still watching for topping patterns. Bitcoin, going to be watching to see how this, again, if it closes above this level, the final target for the double's off. And this is another reason why it's in risk on mode. Sideways correction, rising rotation zone, breakout play in Bitcoin. If this runs, we could still see risk on for a little bit more. There's no fear in this market again. What else? You're welcome, Sterling. Now, again, I will be watching for the market's going to get complacent again. Okay, so there'll be a time to build VIX stuff again. People talking about the April monthly candle in ES. People are looking for a reason. Hold on. This, if it takes out the high, it's a very bullish setup. Okay? If it takes out the high. But people are cheering this market like it's going to go to, I've heard people say the S&P is going to 10K. You know what the valuations would be then? We'd be off the charts psychotically. Now, could this market continue and retest the highs from February? Yes. Would not be surprised. Or have we tipped the probabilities there yet? No, we haven't. But I would not be surprised. I'm not saying we're going to go there in a straight line. I would not be surprised Market is very complacent, and retail is still buying the crap out of this market. All right. You're welcome, Andrea. What else do we have? We had something else. By the way, Microsoft's just, see, the settlement triggered the double. The settlement triggered the double, but you had to sort of trade this on the breakout prior to earnings, and it's gapping up almost all the targets. And then, by the way, there's still a gap left behind. So that one's done. Now, Meta, on the other hand, the trigger is a close above 587.89. Right now, we're looking to gap above there. But let's see how it finishes with the close. All right. Now, would this be one I'd necessarily chase higher? No, it'd be one I'd be watching for pullbacks to get a better reward to risk on that one. But that one is also valid. What else do we have? NVO. NVO on a week, let's see, on a daily basis. Let me check the levels. I'm sure you're correct, Daniel. If I could get the clickety-click right. This is not a double. This is not a double. Why is this not a double? Because you see how I did the reverse harmonics? It extended below this level. So this cannot be treated as a double, traded as a double. Your targets cannot be used as a double. If you were trying to trade a long trade off this, the targets I would be using would not be double targets. I would be looking at this 70, 80 to 71 area as the first target area. Okay? And then the next target area would be around 75, the 74.50 to 75. Let's see, what else do we have here? MMM. MMM. Confirmed. It is triggering, or I should say it probably will. We have to wait till officially to the close. But it confirmed a double here. Sideways base. Now it looks, as long as it closes above 139.23, it's an official trigger. This was the confirmation. We now have to wait for the trigger. But yes, Andrea, MMM, which is already on my chart, is an official double bottom. You're welcome, Options 22. Yes, Amazon has still a potential double bottom. Amazon needs a close above 192.65. All right. So that's where we sit. Let's just peek again. A lot of these, this is why I would not be surprised if a lot of these trigger. We could see a push higher over the next few weeks. We could see a push higher back to prior high areas. You're welcome, Anissa. Again, thank you everyone for tuning in. Let's just peek at the S&P going into the open. Little key area, very key support, going to be watching into the open is this. So this, again, we talked about this earlier from yesterday. This is very short term. But here, so we made a resistance base, test support, test support, test support. If it starts breaking below this, I'd be a little patient watching for the little bigger pullback. If that holds and the tick holds up, I'd be watching for a breakout play. If that level holds, though, I'd be watching for a pullback closer to the 4-hour rotation zone. All right, that's only for very short-term traders, like futures intraday traders. That's the key little thing here. I hope that's one of the key things I watch for, confirmation. Because no, does that guarantee it's going up? No. I need strength into the open to at least retest the highs and then for the potential breakout. But this is very key because if this breaks down there, then I'm watching for a slight bigger pullback. Thanks for posting it, Sterling. So that's where we sit. I shall talk to everyone tomorrow. Remember, non-farm payroll Friday, and we have very key earnings continuing after with that Amazon, which we just looked at the potential double, which may trigger before earnings, and Apple, which does not have a double, by the way. That's where we sit. I hope everyone has a wonderful trading day, and I'll talk to everyone later. Bye for now.